Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something that, well, it feels like a constant battle in 2025, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
The high cost of living here in America. It's almost like your bank account's on this never-ending roller coaster.
A wallet-draining roller coaster? Yeah, that's a pretty
Mhm.
good way to put it. Prices just seem to be creeping up on, well, pretty much everything.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, looking at the info you shared, we've got this really practical guide,
Mm-hmm.
like a step-by-step plan almost, for stretching those dollars, finding ways to boost income, and, you know, trying to live your best life even when things feel tight.
Yeah, and our mission today basically is to pull out the most crucial bits from this guide. We want to give you not just the why things are so pricey, but also some concrete things you can actually do.
Actionable steps.
Right, things you can start maybe even today to feel a bit more in control of your money.
Okay, let's get into it then. Why does it feel like just affording, basic life in the U.S. in 2025 needs some kind of miracle? Your guide really points to some key pressures.
It absolutely does. And at the core, there are several things all tangled together. Housing, as the guide points out, is just massive, a behemoth.
Right.
That median home price, somewhere around $430,000, that gives you the big picture.
Yeah.
But it really hits home when you zoom into the big cities. The guide mentions typical rent, say, for a one-bedroom in New York or LA, easily over $2,000 a month.
$2,000. Wow.
And that number, it isn't just about the building itself. It reflects this big mismatch between how much housing there is, how many people live there, and what people are earning,
Okay.
especially in those areas. It's a trend that's just been picking up speed.
It's just staggering. Makes you wonder how people starting out even manage. And it's not only finding a roof over your head, is it?
Yeah.
It's the day-to-day stuff, too. Seems like it just keeps climbing.
Precisely. Inflation's a huge part of that engine, pushing up those everyday costs. Your guide highlights that, on average, stuff costs, what, 20 to 30% more than just 10 years ago?
That much.
Yeah. And it's not spread evenly either. Things like food, energy,
Yeah.
those have seen some of the biggest jumps. And that, as the guide implies, hits lower income households the hardest.
Makes sense.
Then you add healthcare into the mix, that potential cost for family health insurance, around $22,000 a year. I mean, that number alone can feel totally overwhelming.
Unbelievable. And for families, the guide also mentions childcare and education as major drains, right?
It does, and for good reason. Those are enormous chunks out of a family budget.
Yeah.
And something else the guide really stresses, which is super important, is
Yeah.
that this isn't the same everywhere in the country. The cost of living changes dramatically based on where you are.
Well, for sure.
The guide contrasts, super expensive places like San Francisco with more affordable spots that are still pretty vibrant, like Boise or Raleigh. It really hammers home how much your zip code dictates your financial reality.
So what works in Omaha might be totally out of reach in LA,
Exactly. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all problem.
which means the solutions probably need to be pretty varied too.
Absolutely. And to figure out how these big economic trends actually apply to your specific life, the guide suggests checking out some really good personalized tools.
Okay. Like what?
It specifically mentions the MIT Living Wage Calculator and also Numbeo. These websites let you put in your location and see how your income actually stacks up against the real cost of living right where you are.
Huh. That's useful.
It's a really valuable step, to get a clear, personalized picture of where you stand financially.
Okay, so we've got a clearer idea of why everything feels so expensive. Now let's get down to brass tacks. What practical steps does your guide suggest for actually, taking back some control? Budgeting seems pretty central.
It really is. Your guide basically presents budgeting as the foundation, the bedrock for getting a handle on your money.
Right.
And the first key strategy it lays out is something it calls track every penny.
Track every penny. Sounds intense, like a deep dive into the details. How do you even start with that?
Well, the guide recommends using budgeting apps, things like Mint or YNAB.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
They help you monitor your spending really closely. The advice is to just commit to it for about 30 days.
Okay, a month. Doable.
Then comes the really important part.
Right.
Sorting those expenses. You categorize them into needs like rent, food, bills, the essentials,
Gotcha.
and wants. That's your Netflix, your takeout coffee, movies, that kind of thing. Your guide suggests this process alone can be, well, pretty eye-opening.
At that,
It shows you where your money is actually going, which might be different from where you think it's going.
I can only imagine the surprises in my wants category. Okay, so once we've tracked everything and have this like spending snapshot, what's the next step according to the guide?
Once you've got that data, your guide brings in the 50-30-20 rule. It's a guideline, really.
Okay, 50, 30, 20. How does that break down?
It suggests splitting your after-tax income like this. 50% goes to your needs.
Right, the essentials,
30% is for wants,
the fun stuff.
and the remaining 20%, that's for savings or paying down debt.
That sounds like a solid goal. But the guide acknowledges that 50% for needs might be tough in some places, right? Like those really expensive cities.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely flags that. In those high-cost areas we talked about, the reality is your essential bills might eat up way more than half your income.
Yeah.
And that's where the guide cleverly connects it to other strategies we'll discuss later, basically saying, okay, if needs are over 50%, you either need to look at boosting your income
Or cut back somewhere else.
or make some, yeah, potentially tough choices about trimming those wants. It's all about finding a balance that actually works for you.
Makes total sense. So we've got a budget outline. What's a key thing the guide says helps really make savings stick?
Your guide really champions automating your savings, making it automatic.
How does that work?
Basically setting up regular automatic transfers from your checking account straight into a high-yield savings account.
High yield. What's that?
They're just savings accounts. Usually online banks or credit unions offer them that pay significantly higher interest than, your standard savings account. Lets your money grow faster.
Ah, okay.
The guide even mentions current rates are maybe around 4 or 5%. That can really add up. The main idea is even if it's a small amount, like $25 a month,
Yeah.
doing it consistently and automatically means it builds up over time without you having to think about it constantly.
That's smart, like a set it and forget it approach.
I love that.
And lastly, I guess a budget isn't something you just write once and leave forever, right?
Absolutely not. That's
No.
a crucial point in the guide. It stresses you need to review and adjust your budget regularly, like every month.
Monthly.
Yeah, because life changes, right? Your income might shift, unexpected expenses pop up, maybe your financial goals evolve. Checking in regularly keeps your budget useful and effective.
Okay, great foundation on budgeting from the guide. Now let's tackle the big one for so many people. Housing. Your guide says it's probably the largest single expense for most.
Definitely.
So what strategies does it offer to maybe bring those costs down?
Yeah, housing is a huge pressure point, no doubt. And your guide lays out some options that could be, well, pretty life-changing. One of the biggest, though it's obviously a major move, is thinking about relocation, moving somewhere.
Moving. Wow, yeah, that's a huge step.
It is. But the guide suggests looking into cities that have a lower cost of living overall, but still have decent job markets. It names places like Omaha or Chattanooga as examples.
Okay.
And it also points out how common remote work is becoming, mentioning around 14% of people were fully remote in 2025.
Right, that changes things.
That remote work trend potentially makes moving to a cheaper area much more possible for more people than ever before.
That's a really interesting point. Remote work opening up options for affordability.
Yeah.
But what if, packing up and moving just isn't realistic right now? What else does the guide suggest for people staying put?
Good question. Within your current area, the guide explores several good strategies. Downsizing is one.
Our place.
Yeah, just opting for less space. Going from, say, 1,000 square feet down to 600, that can mean real savings on rent or mortgage, plus utilities, too.
Makes sense.
Sharing is another big one. Getting roommates, that can potentially cut your housing costs by like 30 to 50%, significant savings.
Wow.
The guide even mentions platforms like Roomie or Craigslist to help find people. Then there's this thing called co-living.
Co-living. What's that exactly?
It's becoming more popular, especially in cities like Austin, apparently. It's basically shared living spaces, often designed for it, can be cheaper than renting alone, and often comes with like built-in amenities and a community vibe.
Huh. Interesting. Sort of like dorms for grown-ups, but maybe nicer.
Kind of, yeah. It's a way to share costs and often build connections, too. Besides these bigger changes, the guide also offers some creative, maybe more immediate tactics.
Like what?
Negotiating your rent. Just asking for a discount.
Really? You can do that?
Sometimes. Especially, the guide suggests, if you offer to sign a longer lease or pay a couple of months up front, it doesn't hurt to ask.
True.
Looking into subsidized housing is another path. The guide points you to HUD.gov and mentions programs like Section 8 for affordable options.
Okay.
And finally, there's a more involved strategy called house hacking.
House hacking. Sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it's basically using your own home to make income. Like buying a duplex, living in one half.
And renting out the other.
Exactly. The goal is that your tenant's rent covers a big chunk, maybe even all, of your mortgage payment.
Wow. Okay. House hacking. Definitely more involved, but I can see how that could be a huge financial boost for some. Right. So we've covered housing.
Hmm.
What about all those smaller everyday costs that the guide says can really add up?
Yeah, absolutely. The guide shifts focus nicely to those smaller daily expenses that, add up over time and can really make a difference. Let's talk food first.
Okay, food, always a big one.
Your guide highlights this really stark difference, eating out a lot. It says that averages around $700 a month for Americans.
700, wow.
Whereas cooking more at home, that could potentially bring it down to the $200, $300 range.
Big difference.
It suggests practical stuff like batch cooking.
Right.
Making big pots of pasta or lentils on Sunday to eat through the week saves time and money.
Smart. What about grocery shopping itself? Any tips there from the guide?
Oh, yeah. Smart shopping is key. Your guide suggests hitting discount stores like Aldi or Costco,
Right.
using loyalty cards for savings, and using apps like Flip to find deals before you shop. It also tackles food waste.
Ugh, yeah, I feel guilty about that sometimes.
We all do. It's a huge money drain and bad for the planet. The guide suggests planning meals carefully and even mentions apps like Too Good to Go.
What does that do?
It lets you buy leftover food from restaurants and bakeries really cheap at the end of the day.
Oh, cool, like discounted surprise meals.
Exactly. Good for your wallet, good for reducing waste.
Nice. Okay, what about getting around? Transportation can eat up a lot of money too.
It sure can. Your guide suggests really thinking about alternatives to earning a car, especially if you live somewhere walkable or with good transit.
Like buses or biking.
Yeah, buses, bikes, maybe the occasional Uber. These can be way cheaper than owning a car, which the guide estimates costs around $12,000 a year, all in,
12 grand. Yikes.
compared to maybe $50 to $150 a month for a transit pass. Big difference.
For sure.
If you do need a car, the guide has tips for saving gas, like carpooling or maybe switching to a hybrid or EV. And here's a simple one. Compare car insurance rates every 6 months or so.
Really, every 6 months?
Yeah, rates change. Companies like Geico or Progressive are mentioned as often being competitive. Just shopping around can save you money.
Good tip. Okay, what about those bills that come every month, like clockwork, utilities, subscriptions?
Yeah,
Anything in the guide there?
definitely. The guide offers some pretty straightforward ways to trim those down too. For utilities, simple things. Switch to LED bulbs, unplug chargers and devices when you're not using them.
The vampire drain thing.
Exactly. And look into energy-saving programs your utility might offer, like Ohm Connect, as I mentioned. Little things add up.
Right.
And subscriptions. Oof. Do a regular audit.
Go through the credit card statement.
Yep. Cancel the streaming services you don't watch, that gym membership you never use. The guide even suggests maybe sharing accounts with family or friends to split costs.
Like one Netflix account for the household.
Potentially, yeah. And finally, it suggests checking out cheaper phone and internet plans. It mentions Mint Mobile as an example, with plans starting pretty low, like $15 a month.
Wow, okay. So lots of small changes there that can stack up. That sometimes, cutting back just isn't enough. You need more income. Does the guide get into boosting earnings?
It absolutely does. It makes a strategic shift, really emphasizing that increasing your income is a super powerful way to deal with high costs. It talks about the gig economy being really vibrant in 2025.
Right, the side hustle culture.
Exactly. And it gives a bunch of examples of things people can do.
Like what kind of side gigs does it mention?
Well, if you have skills like writing or design, freelancing platforms like Upwork or Fiverr are good places to look.
Yeah.
For more flexible stuff, driving for Uber or Lyft or delivering for DoorDash, the guide suggests potential earnings there are maybe $15 to $25 an hour.
Not bad for flexible work.
If you know a subject well, online tutoring platforms like Tutor.com or Proply are mentioned can pay $20 to $50 an hour. And even content creation like YouTube or TikTok.
Making videos. Can you really
Yeah.
earn money there?
It might start small, the guide says, but yeah, potentially. Through sponsorships. Even smaller accounts might pull in $100 to $500 a month eventually.
Huh. It's amazing how many ways there are now to earn outside a traditional job. But what about people looking for, more stable, long-term income growth, not just gigs?
Great point. For that, your guide really stresses upskilling, learning new things to qualify for better jobs.
What fields does it highlight?
It points to tech, definitely. Learning coding or AI on places like Codecademy or Coursera can open doors.
Makes sense.
Healthcare is another big one. Roles like nursing or medical coding are in high demand, with salaries often starting around $60,000 or more.
Okay.
And interestingly, the guide also mentions the skilled trades. Plumbers, electricians, big demand, good earning potential, often $50,000 to $80,000.
Wow, yeah, trades are definitely important. So investing in yourself with new skills can really pay off. What about the job you already have? Anything there?
Absolutely, don't forget that. Your guide strongly encourages negotiating for a raise.
Asking for more money. That can be intimidating.
It can be, but the guide says do your homework first. Research what your role typically pays using sites like Glassdoor. Go in armed with data.
Okay, so you have leverage.
Exactly. And it gives an
Yeah.
example. Just a 5% raise on a $50,000 salary. That's an extra $2,500 a year. Not insignificant.
No, definitely not. Okay, so we've got strategies for budgeting, cutting costs, earning more. Now, what about debt? That's a huge weight for so many people. Does the guide tackle that?
Yes, it does. Your guide really frames debt as a major roadblock to financial well-being, and it offers several key ways to attack it.
Where do you start?
The main focus is paying off high-interest debt first. Credit cards are the classic example, right? Often 20–25% interest, sometimes more.
Ouch.
The guide suggests using either the avalanche method, paying off the highest interest rate card first,
Okay.
or the snowball method, paying off the smallest balance first, just to get that psychological win and build momentum.
Right, different strokes for different folks. What about student loans?
It advises looking into income-driven repayment plans, which can lower your monthly payment based on your income, and also checking if you qualify for public service loan forgiveness if you work in certain jobs.
Good options to explore.
And for debt, generally, it mentions refinancing, using platforms like SoFi or Credible to maybe consolidate loans and get a lower interest rate overall.
Makes sense. Get that interest rate down.
Yeah.
So once you're making progress on debt, what's the next financial goal according to the guide?
Building an emergency fund, super important.
The rainy day fund.
Exactly. The guide recommends aiming for 3 to 6 months worth of essential living expenses, enough to cover you if you lose your job or have a big unexpected bill.
3 to 6 months sounds like a lot.
It can be daunting, so
Yeah.
the guide suggests starting with a smaller goal, like just getting $1,000 saved up first. That alone provides a crucial buffer. Keep it in a high-yield savings account, easy to access, but not too easy.
Gotcha. And beyond emergencies, what about long-term stuff?
Yeah, once the high-interest debt is under control and you have that emergency cushion, the guide introduces investing for the future.
Stocks and stuff.
Well, it recommends keeping it simple, especially at first. Investing in low-cost index funds through brokerages like Vanguard or Fidelity. It illustrates how even small amounts, like $100 a month, invested consistently over time, can grow significantly thanks to compounding.
It's really about playing the long game there. Okay, thinking about both today and tomorrow. Now, sometimes, even with the best planning, things get really tight. Does the guide talk about seeking help? External resources?
It absolutely does, and it makes a really important point. You're not alone in this. There are resources out there.
Like what?
It mentions specific types of help. For food, it directs people to their state's website to find info on applying for SNAP benefits,
Oh.
food stamps.
Okay.
For healthcare, it mentions looking into Medicaid or ACA plans, which can be affordable, and also finding free health clinics in your community.
Free clinics, yeah. Important resource.
Libraries, often overlooked, but the guide highlights them as great community hubs, free Wi-Fi, books, computer access, sometimes even job search help.
Libraries are awesome.
Totally. And finally, nonprofits. Organizations like United Way or local food banks often offer help beyond just food, maybe counseling, help with childcare costs, or temporary assistance with utility bills.
It's really good to know those safety nets exist.
Mhm.
People don't have to struggle completely alone.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into tackling the high cost of living, what's the main takeaway the guide wants to leave us with?
I think the guide really emphasizes that getting through this economic climate takes resilience, yeah, but also maybe a shift in how you think about things.
How so?
It encourages seeing frugality not as like deprivation, but as a strength,
Yeah.
a way to gain control. It stresses setting small, realistic financial goals, and really importantly, acknowledging and celebrating your progress along the way. Even small wins matter.
Yeah, got to celebrate the small victories. Definitely. And it also suggests connecting with others. Finding supportive online communities. It specifically mentions Reddit's Our Frugal forum, where you can share tips, get advice, and just feel less alone on the journey.
That community aspect sounds really helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we finish up today, what's that final thought you want to leave our listeners chewing on based on this guide?
Just this. Think about all the areas we covered today: budgeting, housing, daily costs, income, debt, community help. Which one of those feels like the biggest opportunity for you right now to make a positive change?
Just pick one area.
Yeah, pick one. And then ask yourself, what's the very first tiny, manageable step you could take in that direction. Maybe it's downloading a budgeting app. Maybe it's researching rents in a nearby cheaper town. Maybe it's just looking up that Too Good To Go app.
Okay.
Whatever it is, we encourage you, based on the guide's advice, to explore the resources we mention and just take that first small step.